Okay, you asked me if I had a bit, and I swear I didn't all of a sudden just decide, I was like, okay, we're doing bits now. It's just that I'm at work, and then I just think of a random
That's not
bullshit.
a problem. That wasn't mocking you.
It's not really a bit. It's just, the first quote of the game. So
say what you will about Americans.
So say what you will about gamers, but we understand capitalism. You buy yourself a product, and then you bitch about it on the internet.
That's pretty good.
This is like a script. It's not a game script. It's a script.
Fuck the Oscars, Fuck the Oscars! Fuck you!
Because the most subtle nuances of emotions could be seen on screen. With the PlayStation 4, games have now finally reached that stage.
This is the Citizen Game Podcast, a podcast where we talk about games that want to be movies.
Yep, with Ryan and George.
With Ryan and George.
Yep.
And today we're talking about Max Payne 3.
So, I don't know about you.
3 Max, 3 Payne.
Yeah, 2 Max.
3 Max, 3 Payne.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, go on.
No, to me, okay, so this is like become like a common internet comment thing. But Max Payne 3, out of all the games we've covered, it is one of the most. You know what I'm saying?
I think the most.
It is like I don't know. I'm put on the goggles. Like, now this is prestige gaming.
Yeah. Maybe the most, huh?
Exactly, it's one of the most.
One of the most. Maybe it's up there with Last of Us as far as being the most prestige gamey game.
But fuck. So, I had a dumb idea. I don't know if you want to do this, but I thought we could go through the plot linearly,
Sure.
Linearly.
Yeah, describe what happens, okay.
No, like, we put it in order.
Oh, okay.
Because I think that highlights the problems of it pretty.
I also think so. There's at least several. The out of order plot actually screws up something. Okay, sure. We'll go through the plot in order.
Okay, but you know what? Let's get the gunplay out of the way. Let's just talk about that for a second. Did you enjoy playing this game?
At first, and then eventually I stopped.
At what point did you stop enjoying it?
So there's a very specific frustration. I think I told you about this when we weren't recording, but where if Max Payne is up against like a chest high obstacle, and he's holding a long gun, the gun will point up, but the reticle will stay forward, and so you'll have the reticle on an enemy and fire, and Max will fire his gun into the air.
Right, and that is the general problem of the game, prioritizing its fancy, admittedly amazing
physics
animation.
engine and graphics engines.
The Euphoria engine.
Yeah, over a game that feels intuitive and fun to play. And that's like, when you're playing a shooter game, you really shouldn't have the reticle on the enemy and then have the gun fire somewhere else.
The worst is when you get hit and you have that
yes.
last
this
second...
This is the thing that made me stop liking the game during the final level. This happened to me like 4 times, which is you get hit and you lose all your health. You go down to your last second. And I had like 4... Because of your advice that it's better to do the last second revival than to take them normally, like you would in the previous games. I had like 4 pills. But the game... When you get hit, the game pays attention to where the gun is pointing specifically. And so there are points where where you'll have your reticle on the enemy, but the gun is somewhere else, or even caught on level geometry. And therefore you cannot shoot them and you die.
And not just you die, but you have to wait.
Yes, you also
it feels like an eternity.
Because this would also happen. I realize I can't shoot them because of the way the gun is pointing. I try to just reload last checkpoint. It won't let me. It makes me sit there for 20 seconds. Watching the animation as it tells me to do something I can't do. That's so frustrating.
Yeah, it's... And, like, this is that balance between realistic animations and fun gunplay it takes a lot of work. And I remember like watching some Last of Us behind the scenes stuff where they're talking about like Joel's punching, how you have to kind of cut the first few frames of animation so it feels responsive to the player, even though there's not really like a realistic wind-up.
Right, because in real life, it takes you a few seconds or half a second to
Right,
actually get enough energy for a punch.
Which is to say, Naughty Dog, as well animated as their games are, they still prioritize
They know
that
where
player
to...
control.
Yeah, they know...
Yeah.
that there's a point where realism becomes frustrating, and they come right up to it. Like in both Last of Us and Uncharted, they come right up to the point where realism becomes frustrating, and they stop.
But since Grand Theft Auto 4, they've said, they go full realism. That was even like a complaint with like how the cars drove. I mean, the GTA characters and Red Dead Redemption characters, they all control someone described it as you are suggesting where the characters move rather than feeling like a good sense of control.
Yeah, because it tries to make the characters feel like they have weight and they exist in a real space, but that can be annoying.
Which is like a prestige-y thing because they're valuing more how the game looks to a degree where it becomes detrimental.
They're valuing how the game looks. They're valuing making the character feel like a real body. But yeah, it values that moving like a movie, like an actor in a film.
Yeah, and that's why out of all... Okay, so what would have been like the... I mean, Uncharted... Of all the games we covered, Uncharted's fine. I don't like it. I like the other Naughty Dog games. Tomb Raider is... it's like an Uncharted game, whatever. And then Kane and Lynch 2, I mean, I don't even put that on the whatever. That was more for fun. But this particular game, I don't want to say it's like the worst one, but it's the part where it's the most annoying because of the tendencies from the animations to how seriously the story takes itself.
Oh yeah, I'm going to talk about this story, but this game is actually a lot like Kane and Lynch 2.
Well, so I don't think I had you watch the other part of that Jacob Geller video because it was about Max Payne.
Right.
Yeah, because I didn't want to spoil.
I don't even mean
for
totally.
you.
I mean in the things that happen.
Yeah, that too.
The final when the final battle took place with a fat bald guy with a beard in an airport, I was like, "Oh my god!"
Right.
Yeah, I had Vietnam flashbacks.
It is like the good Kane and Lynch 2.
Yeah, like if Kane and Lynch 2 had money and like decently talented production. People,
I mean,
that's what it would be.
Not just all the money, because of course.
But yeah, if they'd let Kane and Lynch 2 be literally the most expensive game of all time.
This game also it's funny. It didn't sell enough. I found an old Polygon article talking because this is 2K, which also published Spec Ops, and they and it's like Max Payne 3 and Spec Ops did not sell enough. Well, Max Payne 3 obviously sold way more copies than Spec Ops, but also cost way much
budget.
more.
Yeah, it couldn't make its budget back. That's like the second game in a row we've talked about that did that.
Yeah, and
Noir had the same problem.
Right, but now it makes sense. That's why we're in this spot where we're just doing the big franchises, Rockstar, and hopefully we can get some sort of online microtransaction thing going, because that's where the real money is.
Yeah, of course, because you blew everything on Max Payne, which is even an established franchise, but not a franchise like a franchise that hadn't had a game in 10 years.
8 years.
8 years,
and a sequel that sold underwhelmingly.
Right, and like a property that even at only 8 years out was more retro than like the average fairly young gaming public would give a shit about.
Yeah. All right, before we move on, for what it's worth, it's like the game is enjoyable despite animation issues.
Before you get to if you're not in a section that's very frustrating, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, and it's I think it had to be a cover shooter because that's what third-person shooters were now.
Yeah,
but
that's the other interesting thing is that it does the Gears of War or Uncharted thing, but that does make the slow-mo feel like the slow motion feel less central to the game because it's not a way to avoid getting shot as you're running through a room, because the way to avoid getting shot is to hide.
Well, it's like it can be, but you have to be way more like strategic about it, and it's well, okay. So I just recently played Fear, the other slow motion game, and that's a game where this is a first person shooter that runs way too fast, and you will die, and that's why you have to rely on slow mo at all points. And Max Payne 3 is more of a, well, this is a cool thing that you need to say, especially on the harder difficulties, because they give you less of it, but this is a cool thing that you need to use at key points, rather than, because, I don't know, you could probably play the whole game without using it. It would be harder and way less fun,
Yeah, but if you were speedrunning or something.
Yeah. Oh, I actually did watch a speedrun, and of course, you don't use it.
You never use the slow-mo. That would be like the first rule, I would assume.
Exactly.
Is you never use slow-mo.
So it just... I can't hold it against it too much, because like I said, I don't think any of the Max Payne games are elegant. I think Max Payne 2 is probably the strongest, but it's fine, and it's more the other stuff around it, like the constant cutscenes that make it annoying.
Right. Because if we're going to talk about the structure of the game, the way the game's built, no more comic books.
Just Ang Lee type of... we're doing visuals that kind of imply a comic book by splitting the screen up.
We do a lot of split screens, but we're not going to have... Because we have money now, and we're not going to make the most expensive game of all time and not give it cutscenes.
Well produced, still pretty good.
And so... It's not just that they use a lot of split screen. They also use constant filters.
Which is completely ripped off from Man on Fire.
Okay, I was going to ask, because I've only seen the trailer to the movie We should talk about Man on Fire.
So, the thing, that whole effect, the difference is like, Man on Fire starts off really strong with... showing, because I think it's actually like Mexico City in Man on Fire.
Yes. We should explain what Man on Fire is first and why we're talking about it. A forgotten Tony Scott, Denzel Washington starring film from 2004, from which this game basically rips off its entire core plot.
Yeah, and we joked where it's like, okay, in L.A. Noire, you're ripping off L.A. Confidential and Chinatown, and for some reason, Max Payne 3 is ripping off Man on Fire.
Because L.A. Noire is ripping off, like, widely recognized classics. Like those two movies. But this is ripping off a movie... Maybe that's how they were like, we'll get away with it.
But the thing is,
we'll
okay,
rip
so...
off a movie no one cares
you haven't
about.
seen it, and I watched it because it was, like, free on some bullshit streaming service, whatever. And, you know what? They did get away with it. Because they did make a more compelling and entertaining story than Man on Fire. Not a good film. It's this weird thing where it couldn't decide is this like a badass action movie or is this just a bunch of melodrama? And it tries to be both. And there's a part where the Man on Fire, whose name is John W. Creasy. Played by Denzel Washington. He, of course, has to go find out what happened to this little girl he was supposed to protect, but didn't because he was too drunk. And instead of doing what Max Payne does and get into the coolest slow-motion gunfights, he instead uses his CIA torture powers for good and cuts off a guy's fingers and makes a car explode with him inside it.
Oh my god.
Or walks up to a guy with like a shotty and then just, blows a guy to the left of his head off and it's like, I'm going to stick this in your mouth unless you tell me about this little girl. And even, here's the other weird thing. I just have to, because no one else is going to talk about this movie.
Yeah, no one else is ever going to talk about or think about this movie.
Christopher Walken does like I forget how he even knows him in the movie, but he does like the whole John Wick ass speech where he literally says,
That's in the trailer, yes.
John
He's an artist of
Creasy.
death.
Yeah, he's an artist of death, which it's like you think, oh, he's gonna do some badass shit, which like I guess he does, but again, you know,
more
he just
CIA torture stuff.
he just cuts a guy's fingers off, and
Wait, okay, are you telling me that a movie made in America in 2004 has a CIA torturer who's justified?
yeah, exactly.
I
But
wonder why.
so, oh, and of course to save a precious white child.
Yes,
and,
from the ravages of the Mexicans.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'll say about it is that, of course, the dad actually, like, sold the daughter, and that's, like, the family betrayal part that the game rips off.
Yeah.
And at some point, John W. Creasy, earlier in the film, he's like, I'm going to kill myself. He tries to shoot his gun. It doesn't go off. And he's like, this bullet wasn't meant for me. And then that dad who sold his own daughter, John Creasy's like, do what's right. And he gives him the gun with the bullet that wouldn't go off on his head. And then the dad was able to shoot himself because that bullet was meant for him.
Oh my god.
Let's move the fuck on.
Okay, so
Oh, wait, except that, like I said, they can get away with it because they ripped off the style and some of the plot elements, but you know what? I mean, partially is Max Payne's already a lovable, established character, but you know what? I enjoyed the story, honest to God, of this game more than Man on Fire. So there you go. Congrats, Dan Houser.
So let's talk about that story that rips off Man on Fire. And so you said we want to talk about this in plot order, not in the order it actually happens in the game.
Yeah, why the fuck not?
Okay, so we start, I guess, a couple years after Max Payne 2, with Max Payne having moved to Hoboken, New Jersey, and become an alcoholic. And we start with him in a bar drinking.
I guess that's... Well, how do we feel about Max Payne being an alcoholic?
Right. It's weird. Because that's what the game is about. Like, that's what his character is basically entirely centered on, is his alcoholism. And it's completely invented for this game. That's never been something... That was not an element of Max Payne's character at all in the first two games.
It's like, I can believe it, but it's like a weird thing where they... You know, you would expect him to be a pillhead. Which
right.
he kind of still is. But that's not recognized.
Yeah, he's like, because there's even every time he gets pills, he's like, he makes a joke about how he's addicted to pills, and he's like, I usually mix these with alcohol or whatever. But the thing that gets more narrative weight is the alcoholism.
And it's like that's probably where ripping off a movie went awry.
Yeah,
because this character has alcoholism, so that would be something interesting for Max
and it's
Payne.
also making Max Payne feel more like a cliche hard-boiled detective.
Yeah, and it doesn't.
That's a common feature of those characters,
right? And it's so I gotta put a pin in because I got more to say about the painkillers, but that's gonna like derail everything. But we'll put a pin in that for a little bit. So he's
drinking, and then he is approached
by Pauly D from Jersey Shore.
Yes,
Well, no, he meets Paz first.
Or no, I think the Jersey Shore guys harass him. They leave, then Paz. Okay, so he meets like 19th century nativist caricatures of Italian people. Like they are it.
And Pauly D.
and a cameo by one of the guys. But it's like I joked about like anti-Italian racism in the first two games.
Yes, and I said it's like it's a carryover.
So that's a joke. They're just playing off like old movie stuff, Scarface, original Scarface, Godfather, whatever, right? This feels actually like hateful in a weird way.
Yes.
Like, it's so bizarre how like and especially because they are absurdly caricatured in a story that is trying to be serious and realistic.
There's also the weird thing with the dad of the guy that Max Payne shoots, there's a weird
Right.
amount of emotion.
You're getting
Like,
ahead of yourself.
Oh, yeah, I get, but still, it goes in with the Italian. That's that he gets so cranky. You like almost feel bad for him. Like,
But so you've got these, and they're like harassing a woman, of course. And then Max Payne tells them to fuck off, and they leave. And I think one of them calls another one the N-word. The one of them, yeah, they do casually refer to each other using the N-word, which is really, that's the only time it's used in the game, and
that's
it's
not
it's-
true.
What? That's not true?
Because it was something I didn't catch in the
It's-
because I was rewatching the cutscenes. There's like the boat thing that we'll get to, that boat level where the young stupid Bronco family member, he like casually throws. Oh, sorry, that's not in the boat. That's in the party room, and you might not catch unless you have subtitles. But
Okay,
he just
I was not
casually.
playing with subtitles.
Yeah,
He also casually uses the N-word?
Yeah. You know, soft A.
Weird satire, I guess.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
just-
God, and of course, and that's the thing is, you know, GTA 5, they fucking that's the satire, but they can't help themselves. Put it in all of these games. Dan
Right,
Houser.
also, yeah, Dan Houser's the writer of this game. Also, well, that one makes more sense than the Italian guys using it.
Yes,
Because, like, I don't know if you know, like, mafia culture, such that it still exists, they don't like black people or black culture very much.
I mean, I
Like-
suppose like a modern,
The younger
maf-
generation, maybe, but, like, these guys are so stereotypical Italian mobster, and they're in the game so little.
Yeah.
So it's not like that moment is like characterizing a character who we'll see later, where at least it is with the stupid younger brother.
And it's a hard thing to sense, but you said it off mic where it's like, and I think you're also talking about like the Brazilian characters, but it's like this feels hateful. This feels bitter.
It feels, these characters feel hate in a way that like Frankie the Bat Niagara is a goofy character. But that's because the first two games is a bit of a cartoon. Like, you have this stupid guy in the mascot head who's like, "Get me out of here," or whatever. And they are stereotypes, but they're stereotypes that live in a cartoon world. These are like, these guys are just as absurd, but the game is telling us that they're realistic portrayals.
And I don't know, like, you know, I was talking to you about Red Dead Redemption, which has an Irish character that I didn't listen. You know, I've got an Irish aunt that like not related. I'm not Irish. I would never claim that. But you know, so I'll say it's like
I am.
I'm all for, you know, making fun of the Irish. But
Yeah, I am,
honest
too.
to God, that character in Red Dead Redemption is like, that feels racist. I never thought I would actually, because every single line is him talk. It's like, "I'm a drunk loser. I will betray you." Hoi to toi to toi. You know, like just
Yeah, well,
like
it's
this actually
because-
feels offensive.
Like, this game, I've not played the first Red Dead, so I wouldn't, or the first Red Dead Redemption, I wouldn't know. But in this game, it doesn't feel like he's making fun of Italians, because there's no joke. It just feels like he's mad. Dan Houser, or the creators in general, are mad.
And I guess
then-
some of
sorry, I was...
no, go ahead.
I was just going to move on to the next thing in the plot.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, then they fuck off. Then another guy walks in, a Brazilian guy named Passos, who says that he and Max Payne were in the NYPD together. And he says that they were at the academy together. And I think, because later on we find out that's probably not true, because I was like, Passos seems like 20 years younger than him. But he comes in and he's like, they talk or whatever, and Passos wants him to come work private security with him, because Max Payne, I guess, retired from policing after Max Payne 2, and is now just drinking.
Yeah, he's taken up drinking full time.
Yeah. And then the guys who Max Payne does call Goombas
Yeah.
come in, and he's gonna kill Max Payne for embarrassing him, or the head young Italian guy is gonna kill Max Payne for embarrassing him. So Max Payne gets a gun and shoots him, and there's a gun. It turns into a gunfight. They fight their way through the bar. And then it turns out that guy he shot was the son of like a big New Jersey mob boss. They have a big dumb fight where he burns down an apartment building.
Which all this is just, well, of course, this is a flashback explaining how did Max Payne end up in Brazil.
Why did he have to leave New York? Or
while also justifying
I guess he already lived in New
shootouts.
York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also, justifying some shootouts in New Jersey so he can get some different types of levels.
Yeah, a level that feels a lot more like the first two games because it's
Right.
snowing and you're you're not in New York, which I don't even know. Like, why do they move it to New Jersey? It's just a weird decision because, like, Max Payne talks about New York as, like, his home, but then why in the flashbacks is he living in Hoboken, New Jersey?
It's like an extra
Weird
like,
complication.
Yeah,
because
for
his
no
wife
reason.
is apparently buried there?
Or wait, they didn't
New
go back
Jersey?
to New York, did they?
Or
No, wait, that wouldn't make any sense.
when he visits his wife, are they back in New York or are they in New Jersey still?
I don't even know.
Hang on.
Whatever. No, just let's.
And that's what that's
Doesn't
later.
matter.
So then they go visit his wife in
Are you looking it up?
Wherever. I'm trying to figure out if that scene takes place. It's like genuinely 9 years after the second game. Okay. I'm on Wikipedia. It doesn't say. Anyway, they get into another stupid gunfight that doesn't even matter.
There's a good moment. There's a good moment. I like the fact that he takes cover behind his wife's headstone and it gets shot to pieces. That's cute. I'll give him that one. That's good.
Sure, I guess. There is a weird line where he's like kind of dismisses the plot of the second game.
Yeah, it's
where he's like, I felt bad about Mona Sachs in the sense that he seems like he felt like he was cheating on his dead wife.
I don't
or something.
The thing is, weird. It's not interested in. Well, even though presumably his alcoholism is driven by the events of the first two games, it's not too concerned with those two games.
This could have been a reboot where it's just he has a dead wife.
Yeah.
And the actual events of the first two games didn't happen. For all that the only thing that matters is that he has a dead wife and a dead kid.
And that's like, on one hand, I said this on the other Max Payne episode, where it's like, I understand moving him somewhere else was with a vastly different scenery. Probably a good idea, because I don't know, the first two games were very linked together, and it probably helped just, we're doing something completely different. But on the other hand, you're right, it feels like an arbitrary sequel.
It's also the thing of there are no supporting characters. You couldn't bring back any supporting characters in the first two games, because the second game is basically entirely dedicated to killing every surviving character from the first game.
Right.
So it's not, you can't have any familiar faces come back. There aren't any left. But so he goes, whatever, they have a shootout. There is a weirdly emotional scene with the dead guy's father where he's like crying and Max Payne like says he feels bad for him, but his son was an absurd cartoon, so I don't.
And it's like, why is that extra bit of I don't
pathos? Maybe
you haven't played Fallout 4, right?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, for the people who've played Fallout 4, this shit's like Kellogg, where it's like, not to that extent of Kellogg, but it's like, why are we getting so emotional about this random-ass villain that ultimately we're just going to shoot in the head?
Right. Well, we don't even kill the old guy.
Right.
But then they get out and they go, so this is a twist that's very weird because of the way it's non-linearly presented. Mm-hmm. Because this flashback happens when the cop, the good detective, is like, who's also, I think, ripped off from Man on Fire, is like, what did you really think you were doing in Panama? And we have never had any exposition about something happening in Panama before this point. So then there's just a flashback to his second job with Passos, because the first one didn't matter, where he's protecting this rich American girl on a boat in Panama. It's hijacked by like guerrillas, like vaguely leftist guerrillas who kill everyone, but the boat was actually smuggling money for the Bronco family, who were the main family and who he's protecting.
And of course, this is obviously suspicious.
Right. I say it was hijacked by guerrillas, but later on, Max Payne says, I thought it was just her ex-husband, which is, I don't even know what that means. Like, there were 2 cover stories.
And so, essentially, this is where, in the game, you realize the whole plot hinges on Max Payne being a fall guy, which hinges on him being the stupidest motherfucker
right.
to ever walk the face of the earth.
Like, they're clearly stealing something, because we see the Flash, like, the reason they couldn't do this linearly is because we would instantly figure out the twist as soon as we saw them putting something in a truck and leaving.
And of course, like, they just write it off with, like, yeah, Max Payne is so alcoholic and zoned out. And it's like, he wasn't like a moron like in those first 2 games.
Also, he's so alcoholic, and I just killed like 60 people. Like, if he's too alcoholic to think that it's suspicious, he's too alcoholic to kill that many people. Like, the alcoholism stuff, and this is because a place where they're not willing to, where they are doing ludonarrative dissonance.
No, okay. So
Hang
yeah,
on, but it is.
No, you're right. We're pulling the pin out. Let's fucking talk about the alcoholism
they're not willing to have the alcoholism impair his ability to be the most badass motherfucker on the planet. Like, there's never a point where being drunk or high makes it hard for him to kill people.
And this is why it's brain dead prestige.
Right.
It's the ultimate sort of brain dead prestige because, what are these third person shooters? It's trying to find a way to tell a serious plot while still, having you shoot a bunch of people in the head. And Last of Us, probably the best balance of that, of, having all these games are about having your cake and eating it. And Max Payne 3, we have a story that is about alcoholism, among other things. And we are not willing, because it would be so fuck, you can get drunk in like Grand Theft Auto 4.
Right. It would be so easy to have a scene where
some
something
sort
bad
of
happens,
mechanics.
and then Max pulls out his gun and just drops it. Like, you can't aim or something because you're too drunk. Like, it could be a scripted story thing, but just give us a moment where we're in control but can't do shit because he's drunk.
But it could be story, or you could do... Okay, so remember Wolfenstein 2, how it starts out with BJ really hurt, and that's reflected by he has half health but double armor? And like that doesn't really change anything, but it's like a little mechanical thing to actually reflect his body's situation. It's like you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to make it like the game is like just sucks to play, but have some fucking like make his aim wobble and have that be noticeable when he quits alcohol that it's better.
Right, because that would feel like feel like a redemption if he becomes
and it just
something.
seems so fucking obvious, like using and that right there is like, I think a clear example of you're not using the medium.
No, you're literally taking a story from a different medium. You're taking a story of a shitty like a C-tier Tony Scott movie, and then just grafting it onto a third-person shooter.
So you talked about ludonarrative dissonance with the fucking alcoholism, which, okay, so I wanted to get into the painkillers because I love painkillers. I love getting into painkillers.
I just wanted to say one more thing.
Okay, you go ahead.
And this is about the flashbacks,
right?
And the excuses for gun battles. Because I feel like if you did this like Last of Us style, which it sounds like I'm sucking off The Last of Us. Like, I love it so much. I don't love it that much, but like,
no, but these
flashbacks
the best
didn't
example.
need to be gun battles.
They did for
gameplay reasons, yes.
But also like, not that they had to have gameplay, but just like you need that gameplay because the game's only like 8 hours,
right? Yeah.
But that is like, it is the worst of both worlds with like the story and because of course, Naughty Dog games, you've got Quiet Time. I mean, the later Naughty Dog games, but games I generally like, that every game needs quiet time. This is like the worst of both worlds, where you have constant gunfights, but when it's not gunfights, it's cutscenes. And you don't have any sort of can you just let me walk around in silence?
Max Payne 2 has more of that.
Yeah.
The sequence is in the police station in Max Payne 2 have more breathing room than Max Payne 3.
And and when I'm talking about cutscenes, obviously I don't mind like good story cutscenes, but they can't help themselves with like we have to transition to each like the worst one is like when you're doing defense in the office building where like Marco Bronco is, where like every room we have to have some bullshit where Max is going to the next room and he's dragging along the other guy, the tech guy or whatever. Like nothing of consequences. Why can't I just walk? Why can't I, the player, just walk to the next room?
Rodrigo Bronco, not Marco Bronco.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, it's so annoying. That is really annoying because it will. This is so frustrating. It changes the gun you have equipped. Whenever you go into a transition loading cutscene, Max, if you have a long gun, a shotgun or a rifle out, Max will put that in his offhand and draw a pistol because it's animated assuming he has a pistol. Which is,
genuinely, it's cool. I like that this was a thing people before this always bitched about, where it's like, why do I only have a pistol in the cutscene? And they fucking did it. But the cost was it unequips that rifle, which can genuinely screw you over in some sections.
Like, because there's sections where there's a ton of enemies where you'll spawn in with the pistol out. And it's like, no, I need an automatic weapon to deal with these guys. But I'm fine with it if it just transitioned to the pistol for the animation, and then when you took control again, you had the rifle, it'd be fine.
Yeah.
But again, prioritizing realism over gameplay, the fact that it forces you to switch the equipped weapon in gameplay is so annoying.
Yeah, and if that was going to be it's like you shouldn't have even bothered, honestly. Like,
yeah,
just have I personally don't care that much. It's neat to see, but
I'd rather be able to keep the weapon I have equipped.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go back to the painkillers thing real quick, which is, so I was thinking like ludonarrative dissonance, but I also I had this thought like, wait a second, I'm gonna take a moment, I'm gonna go reread Clint Hawking, the guy who was project lead or whatever on Far Cry 2.
Who created the term ludonarrative dissonance.
Yeah, and I was going to read his blog, because he wrote this to talk about Bioshock. And I was like, I'm going to fucking use this term 100% correctly. Rereading the blog, I read it before, but I was like, actually, I think I'm more confused. And I think this term is even more useless.
Wow.
But I did have a quick aside where he wrote an amazing
I saw what you
said. Yeah. Where he talked about, listen, we joke, Roger Ebert talking about how video games aren't art, and we joked about how tons of people felt very insecure about that. But you know what? I guess someone had to tell him off, right? Someone had to write a blog post.
And why not Clint Hawking?
And why not a guy who... It should be someone who works on these games,
And a guy who, say what you will about ludonarrative dissonance, it is probably the first video game-specific academic term to gain any traction.
Yeah, I just was very humored because he wrote, he made an argument that GTA San Andreas was more of a piece of art than Crash, the movie.
Have you seen Crash?
No, but I know it's stupid, right?
Terrible.
And it's
I hate that movie.
So you know what? I have played GTA San Andreas, so you know what?
You're beating me because I've seen Crash because I had to. To be clear, I was forced to watch it for a class. But I've seen Crash and have not played GTA San Andreas, and that's why I'm racist and you're not.
I gotta read this one thing. GTA San Andreas, on the other hand, which I played for a good 100 hours or so, gave me such a world-transforming view of racial tensions and inequality in early 1990s California that I have been shaken to my core and have been forced to re-examine a huge part of my worldview.
I don't
So,
know.
as someone who played GTA San Andreas, you know what? Sure. If that's what you got from that, more power to you.
But like, what? what do you like? What aspects of your worldview were you re-examining, and in what way? Like that, it's like a Pandora's box of a statement, where it's like I don't know what that means.
He did not know that you could do so many orders at Cluck and Bell. He did not know one man could order so many different types.
You could find the dummied out sex mini game if you hack the game files.
Oh god, this is getting off. Okay,
I know you totally distracted me now. I can't stop thinking about that statement.
The circle back to the
Okay,
painkillers.
anyway.
All to say is,
sorry.
Painkillers. That I call it Ludo narrative. Call it just any kind of dissonance. What the fuck? So he can quit alcohol, but still being a pillhead is completely fine, and that's just not recognized by the story at all. And that's fucking weird because it's a story about addiction, but we're just going to completely keep this type of addiction. And I was listening to a different podcast where like some guys were talking about it and actually had dealt with like different types of addiction, and they were like, a lot of the performance in the really good parts when Max Payne quits and everything, and a lot of that they felt was really well done, but then we're just completely off-put by the fact that he still gets to be a pillhead, and that's fine.
Yeah, well, that's because it's integrated into the mechanics more than his alcoholism. So
again, and it's like, I guess it's less cool if his addiction was just being a pillhead, but that... Okay, how about this? You fucking get rid of the pills, and alcohol is the new painkillers for health. That, it doesn't fucking matter it's just the health thing, but now at least represents what's going on in the story.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say about that.
Okay,
it's just weird.
We've been going for a while and haven't even gotten to the main plot again.
Well, we stopped at like the part where it flashbacks to where Max Payne really should have figured things out.
Right. But then we get to the present narrative.
Right.
Because that's the last of the three flashbacks. We get to the present narrative, which is Max Payne, alcoholic in Sao Paulo, guarding a rich family called the Broncos. And
it's kind of pointless because...
It's all kind of... Somebody tries to kidnap them, then somebody tries to kidnap them again and succeeds at kidnapping the guy's wife.
Yeah, you mean in the nightclub.
In the nightclub. So there's first the attempt at the office, then at the nightclub.
Well, and so, like, the intro... Yeah, that first level, even though it's just pointless,
right.
Yeah, I guess they were thinking, like, okay, we need a level where you shoot people, but we also have to introduce everybody.
I guess, because it really did feel like... Why didn't she just get kidnapped there?
Because you need another level.
We need another... Yeah, exactly. We need another level. So we need a level where the same thing happens, but they don't get rescue her.
And of course, that first level is just steeped in the brilliant social satire of, like, look at these...
Rich people are bad. They suck. They're stupid. They do drugs.
Yeah, rich people... And obviously, rich people are bad, but...
Poor people scare me, but I feel bad for them.
Yeah. And this is where I think the most... not offensive, or just like Max Payne's inner monologue has clearly shifted.
Right. To
being stupid.
Here's the biggest problem, is that I'm going to compare Sam Lake and Dan Houser, David Houser?
It's Dan Houser, yeah.
Sam Lake, Dan Houser. Sam Lake's having fun.
Absolutely.
And Dan Houser is not. It's not like, writers don't have to have fun. But we're transitioning from a writer who's having fun to one who's not. Because in the first game, there's a whole joke where Max Payne calls his own monologue rambling nonsense. And there's this level on which it is a joke about overwrought, hard-boiled monologues. And in this one, we are meant to take it completely seriously and endure long diatribes about his political beliefs.
I mean, fuck. Of course, we're doing this in order, but, the first scene we actually see is the flash to the end, where he does
we understand capitalism.
And it's like, actually,
I don't know.
That whole monologue is like, that represents pretty much everything wrong with the writing of the game. Whereas, what does he say? I couldn't tell you right from wrong if one of them was helping
the poor and the other was banging my sister.
And it's like, this is not
I see you reaching for something, but you're not getting it.
Absolutely.
The problem is...
Baghdad and G-strings.
Huh?
Baghdad and G-strings. That's the other line that always fucking sticks out. And there's nothing much to say, because it's just like, yeah, we switched writers, but you're right, going from the charming brilliance of Sam Lake to the Holden Caulfield bullshit of Dan Houser, it just sucks.
From noir York City. And then in the second game, you make a joke where a show takes place in noir York City. Just so self-serious and so, but empty. Because that's the thing about the capitalism line. It's also empty.
Yeah, it's like, what do you mean? You're just
What does that even mean? Capitalism is when you buy things?
You're trying to sound cynical, but you're literally just saying, like, oh, that's capitalism working. What the fuck?
I don't even know what it means.
It doesn't mean anything.
Capitalism is when you buy stuff. And the thing about banging my sister, helping the poor, is like, it feels like you want to. Okay, we need metaphors in the internal monologue, but you always pick the first metaphor that comes into your head, or the first turn of phrase, and not something more convoluted, but cleverer and funnier because of it.
And of course, this is all just to say, this game takes itself too fucking seriously.
Yes, this game is so relentless.
Because you're a game about, what do I always say? You're about shooting people in the face, but you're about cool slow motion shooting people in the face.
No, it's about poverty and organ
about
harvesting.
About fucking organ harvesting.
And
Jesus
Brazilian
Christ.
politics. Man. I want to make a new version of this game where the ending is that the main bad guy gets away with it, but then 2 weeks ago, he got arrested in Brazil when they tried to storm parliament in Brazil. That's the final shot, is him getting put on the ground by the military.
That's the after credits scene.
Yeah, the after credits is that he gets away with it, but then goes to jail for doing that. So the politics. I do want to have it aside. I'm not an expert in Brazilian politics. This is mostly from stuff I've read recently. And the shout out to the podcast QAnon Anonymous, who had a really good episode about Brazilian politics in relation to the January 8th attempt to storm the legislature. But it is accurate in the way that all the major cities are right-wing. Because Latin American politics, in a lot of Latin America, works backwards from U.S. politics. In terms of rural areas are where the left is strong, and urban areas are where the right is strong. So that's accurate. It's also accurate that the police, from what I've seen, the police in Brazil, I think, are one of the highest instances of use of lethal force in the world. I believe, per capita, they kill either the most or close to the most people a year. They at least seem to have done some research on that, because that is depicted in broad strokes somewhat accurately. And the existence of paramilitaries affiliated with right-wing political groups is also true. The game doesn't... I don't know if the game is intending to evoke the specter of the military dictatorship with the whole torture stuff. I guess not. Why Brazil? I guess what I'm asking is, why Brazil?
Because
why was it Brazil?
I guess they thought if they did Mexico City, that would just be a little too on the nose.
Well, there's also that Brazil is sexier.
That's true.
Because in American imagination, Brazil is it's poor and it's fucked up, but it's sexy. We think like, you know, Carnival and all that, you know.
But I guess in, you know, enough crime in the imagination of writer. I mean, yeah, there's like crime, but you know what I'm saying, where it's like easy to imagine a shooting gallery.
Right, in a third world country. But because that's another thing that the game wants you to think it's realistic.
Again, going to the fucking intro where it says everything wrong with it, where Max Payne is aware that he is a stupid, angry gringo. He keeps saying it. He keeps saying,
a stupid, angry gringo with a gun.
I'm not the savior of the poor, but he is, and that's the epitome of the wanting to.
It's weird. They call him the great American savior of the poor as a joke, but he did save those people. He did actually save those. Because there's a scene where this is jumping way ahead, but whatever. Because at this point, the plot is just shooting people and failing to save a woman, and it doesn't matter that much.
Also, Dan Houser. I mean, you know, they hate women too.
Yeah, of course. Like the way that Fabiana's character is just like she exists just to like get led around and then get shot and never get mentioned again.
Dumb bitch.
Max Payne doesn't even give a shit.
Yeah.
But there's that scene where like the head of the right-wing death squad, Neves, is like, we paid money for these organs. And it's like, from what we saw earlier, you paid money to the cops to sell slaves. You didn't pay them for their organs. So I don't even know what that means. Is that supposed to introduce moral complexity? We paid for these slaves. What does that mean?
Yeah,
I don't... Like, we saw...
completely brainless.
Is he trying to imply these people willingly sold their organs? Because we saw the cops round people up and sell them. We did not see people volunteer. I mean, we know
this is what I'm trying
that's not what's happening.
This is what I'm trying to figure out. As like trying to understand the Hauser brother, you know, whoever wrote the Dan Hauser. Other people helped with the writing, obviously.
Yeah, but he was the head writer, right?
What I'm trying to figure out is he just parroting like American Dream, capitalism stuff because that's what his favorite movies do? Or is there some sort of like philosophy that, or, you know, a point of view that we can grab from him? Does he have any sort of like actual feelings that he's trying to get out?
Like, that's what it felt like. The game feels like, to me, someone who's like, there's a line when the Bronco office is attacked, when Rodrigo's killed. Before that, when he finds a dead secretary, and he thinks some hero fighting the rich, one dead secretary at a time, or hero of the people fight, right?
Yeah, something like that.
And it's like, well, Max, that would make sense if these were the leftist guerrillas who attacked the boat in the flashback, right? Then it would make sense to say they think they're heroes of the people who are fighting the rich, right?
Right.
These are right-wing death squads who mostly kill poor people. So what does that line mean? They don't think they're fighting a revolution against the rich. So why are you saying that? It's just to sound cynical, but you don't even know what you're talking about.
The only continuity that I can kind of grasp from like the Grand Theft Auto games is this sort of attitude of like, you know what? I'm a piece of shit. Everyone's a piece of shit, and I'm the good piece of shit.
Right.
You know, I'm
which
the
means
best
you
one.
think you're the good guy. Sorry.
But I'm also kind of badass because I'm still a piece of shit because I'm so cynical.
You still think... But like that doesn't mean anything. You still think you're the good guy.
Yeah, which like you can see that shit with like Trevor from GTA 5, who's like a bloodthirsty psycho. But, you know, he's also like... He's like kind of cool and funny still in a weird way. And you were expected to identify with him more than any female characters in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not okay.
I'm not laughing. Like,
yeah, hold on. This is literally just like a 15 second clip. I will play the audio when I fucking edit the podcast.
We are women and we are free. We're bringing an end to the patriarchy. We are women. Hear our pain. We are women. Hear our shout. We are women. Have no doubt. We are women. We are free. We are
Shut the fuck up! Thank you.
I don't even get it.
It's just that
it's not a good joke.
These like elderly women, these like 40-year-old women are annoying.
Elderly.
Whatever.
Right, they're annoying, and then he tells them, I don't even...
Yeah. But of course, Trevor, you're supposed to, like, weren't those women annoying? And he yells at him. It's like, Trevor's like, he, like, rapes dogs. Like, I don't feel like,
Like, it's just bizarre. It's like it wants to feel like it has something to say, but it doesn't actually have a point of view. That clip and that I'm talking more about Max Payne 3 in general.
The point of view, like I said, it's nonsense, or it's baby brain, whatever. It's cynicism with no fucking rhyme or reason.
It's just saying whatever you can to sound smart and cynical, but even if it's not actually a sensical commentary on what's happening.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that because, like, on the first playthrough, I was lost. I was forgetting which groups were which for a little bit.
Right.
But that's a really good fucking point. And that's like, wait, like, that doesn't...
that line would make sense. Yeah, that line would make sense if it was in the boat flashback. Maybe, unless those guys were hired by her ex-husband or the Broncos. It's never actually made clear. But that line would at least make sense as a cynical thing to say about these Central American guerrillas in the boat sequence. But not about right-wing death squads in Brazil.
And of course, just it's trying to have its cake and eat it, because I realize that I'm doing, like, white saviorism, but I'm still doing it. And, of course, what's the Spec Ops the line? The answer is, oh, I should have never come here. I've only caused harm. That would be the braver game if Max Payne, because he knows he's using this as just, like, a way to, like, better himself in a weird sense, to get redemption. But he does do that.
Right. Like, it would be better, yeah. And he does get the bad guys.
Except the guy is rich enough, and so he gets to live with a bad leg until he's
just... So they don't even commit
capital.
to that, because he either gets murdered or kills himself in prison, like, a month later.
Right.
So they don't even commit to him maybe getting away with it is not even committed to, because they tell you clearly he dies almost immediately.
Which, like, come on, like, if you're trying to be cynical...
At least have the balls to have him, like, live and maybe get away with it. Don't just tell us, but no, it's fine, he killed himself or was murdered.
Yeah, okay, so Max Payne fails to save women getting shot in the head, and it mirrors his previous, which is the closest it gets to kind of like
a tie into the first game, or to any previous game. But then he just forgets about it and is just dedicated to killing people.
Right. Okay. So he does rescue the sister, and then, like, I know this is kind of out of the blue, but, like, goddamn, the fucking the douchebag Bronco, he gets fucking neck laced.
Yes.
And it's like, that, again, talk about too fucking serious.
Yeah.
Like, we're doing neck lacing. Like, it just dies in a horrible fucking way.
Yeah, and it's not... And I don't even know how the game intends me to feel about that. Because, like, this character was a joke until this point.
It's just shocking, I guess.
For its own sake. And then... And that character, the one... Because she's the one who does charity work.
Yeah, so she's the one who gets to... She doesn't really get, like, character development, but, they give her that scene where it's like, oh, I am brave enough to be boosted over a fence to open a door for you.
Right. But the charity work stuff, because we also have a thing where... did you get those weird things with the ex-cop?
What do you mean?
There's, like, a fat ex-cop you meet twice. I think it's a thing you can miss, because you have to find him in a fucking toilet in the nightclub scene.
Okay, well, yeah, I definitely missed that then.
So right, so you meet this
away.
ex-cop who's like, I'm a retired cop from North Dakota, or it's like Fargo shit. And he keeps talking about how he's a wife and kids and he's retired. And I think the joke is meant to be that he doesn't die. But then later you meet him, if you met him the first time, you meet him again in the favela and he's doing, like, charity work. And both that and her, like, she's the good sister because she does charity. The game is shockingly uncynical about that. Like, I assumed there would be a point where it's, this charity is just you trying to make yourself feel better. It doesn't really help people. But no, it's like weirdly, totally buys the Americans coming down to help for a few weeks idea, or rich people coming down to help for a few weeks idea. in a way that doesn't feel critical at all.
Yeah.
Which is very... it does think that doing charity makes her a sincerely good person.
Right.
Which is strange.
It is strange.
I guess that's the way...
She's kind of the only character that... I mean, the game is kind of, like, weirdly sympathetic to the Bronco that gets shot. I forget
Rodrigo?
Yeah, because he's like a rich guy, but he tried to do good for the people, you know.
Right, yeah. This is how the game gets away with hating being like rich people's bad, but not liking the Central American guerrillas in the boat level.
Which I
that's how it gets away with that.
I can only assume comes from the fact that the writers of this game probably have a decent bank account.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, yeah. And partially just because a lot of the hating rich people thing feels like a pose, because I think you're right that that they hate rich people because that's what stories like this do, and not because you come into the story wanting to say anything.
Yeah.
And so it all feels pretty empty.
Okay. So he rescues that one lady. Then we have the meetup with the guy who explains the plot to Max Payne.
Yeah, this cop just explains everything.
Which we already kind of talked about that. Then he just gets... The cop's like, okay, here's the actual... Go in here and stop the organ harvesting.
Yeah, and then go in here and kill all the cops. And then go in here and do the airport fight.
So, real quick, there's that part... That bit where the guy who had Max Payne previously at gunpoint was captured by the organ harvesters.
Yes.
And Max Payne lets him kill the doctor that cut him up.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't really know what to say except what I've already said, which is the whole thing feels fucking gross for a game that's not really ambitious enough to take on that kind of maturity. It just comes across as edgy and... and then, of course, Max Payne yells, "You're turning people into fucking glue," which that felt, again, like some Grand Theft Auto where it's like, I'm the piece of shit, I'm gonna call out the bigger pieces of shit type of thing, and but the game's not over after blowing up that building.
Yeah, because the last, several levels are just the cop... The detective shows up, drives Max Payne somewhere, he kills everyone, then he goes back in the car.
Yeah, okay, and so, pet peeve, the police station thing, I fucking hate that he just escapes, by doing action movie shit. And it's like, can you do, something, this is, the most minor complaint, but, can you do something clever? He gives him, a fucking hair pin so he can pick his handcuff. It's just expected. Prison where Max Payne can easily just escape because there'll be a moment for him to headbutt a guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a minor thing that pisses me off, but
I agree.
Then, yeah, you're right. There's really not much else, and then you just go, the important thing is Passos, he was that part of that whole betrayal and everything is, he knew about it. He was on Victor Bronco's payroll, but he comes back to rescue Max Payne before the building fucking collapses.
And then they just leave the plot. Passos and his girlfriend who's pregnant.
So here, if I were to do a basic ass rewrite, because you're right, he just fucking exits the plot. It's I don't know, do what you need to do, but I think a more compelling thing would be if Passos was in danger with his lady, and Max Payne has to kill a bunch... The final emotional way, and Max Payne's goal is to rescue them. So he gets to rescue the family that he didn't rescue himself.
Yeah, that would...
Yeah. Well, it's that's what I would rewrite the story to, is that should be the emotional thrust, to kind of tie it all together.
There's also this weak thing where it's we only see Passos once after we find out he was in on it. And then Max is just it's okay, get out of here, and then that's it.
But the implication is, it's there is that parallel is intentional. He goes like, you know how it is, and he's like, I know, starting a family and stuff. And it's like, it feels like there should have been more there, because really all that's left is to shoot a bunch of people in the airport, like it's Kane and Lynch too. Except you're trying to stop someone escaping
From
rather
escaping
than
instead of escaping.
I want to talk about, the moment, the music moment, where he goes out in the middle and it plays the most iconic song in the game. You remember this part?
No.
Okay. Well, of course, the soundtrack was done by the noise rock group Health, and it's a pretty good. No complaints about the soundtrack. Nobody complains about the soundtrack. Everybody loves the soundtrack.
It's pretty good.
And there's a part where you start out in the airport, and it plays a the most kick-ass loud song, where there's actually vocal lyrics.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember this.
And the if you pay attention to the lyrics, it comes across as Max's dead wife and child singing to him. And it's like, there's a lot of thought there, but why? It's just, this gunfight isn't any more significant than any other. There's no thematic elements except, it's just, there's no reason to put this extra emphasis in this particular gunfight for any thematic reason. Like, it's effective. People love that part of the game. But, this is like a thing. This is we're going to put some music on. I don't know. Call this the kill everything badass music fight. The ashtray maze in Control. The scene in Splinter Cell Conviction, where there's music and you get unlimited headshot moves or whatever the fuck. Breaking Benjamin in Halo 2. That one part. This is like an established thing where you put on some kick-ass music at a particular, and usually like a rock song or something. And usually the key element to that sort of thing is some sort of escalation, whether it's thematic, with the ashtray maze, you're going through some wacky shit that you haven't seen before. With Halo 2, it's just a bigger fight, but this fight isn't any more special. I suppose the sight lines are really long, but I don't know. It just is it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, the ending is just, it doesn't even feel like it's for revenge. It's just because he wants to kill these people. Because there's not a moment where he's like, I'm doing this for Fabiana or Rodrigo or Marcelo or any of them. He's just
doing it
time to kill them.
Because that's what they paid for.
No, it's not.
They paid for an angry gringo, and that's what they get.
But they paid for you to be stupid and not be able to do anything, though. I don't even, because when I saw that opening, it's like, oh, they paid for him to try to trick him into killing someone else. It's like, no, they paid for you to be drunk and ineffectual. Like, the idea was that he wouldn't be able to.
But of course, it's like, no, except, what's weird is that element, that's of course straight from Man on Fire, which, since it's a movie, you presume that, he can't protect the little girl because he's drunk, and that's why they paid him. And we already talked about where it's like, except Max is completely competent.
Yeah, he's a bad, there's never a moment where it feels like if he wasn't drinking, he would have been able to, save the day. I never get that sense from the game.
Yeah, the sense you get is, we chose Max Payne because he's taken a few too many blows to the head, and he just he can't do detective shit anymore, and he just doesn't think too good no more, They chose him because he's, wow, this guy's really stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, I do want to circle back to, I forgot to bring this up when we were talking about the New Jersey section, but I want to talk about, do you remember Brewer?
No.
The, homeless bomber manifesto.
Right. I forgot about that. That's so bizarre. I remember that now.
when I first played it, I was like, was this like a character from the first two games? That because it seems like it's pretending it is like, oh yeah, Max has known this particular guy, and no, he's just an invention of this game, and it just comes out of nowhere, and
it's so bizarre,
and again, just feels spiteful or something. It's like, yeah,
I don't even know if that's spite. It's just feels like nonsense.
Yeah, you're
that
right.
That scene just feels like gibber. Like what? You should have cut this from the script.
Yeah, but they
you
wanted
been
to just have some like fucking Unabomber ass guy for some reason in their plot.
But why? Like, that feels like a wacky character who could have been in one of the earlier games, but that would have been it would have been trying to be funny.
Yeah, well, if it was one of the earlier games, it probably wouldn't be a suicide bomber.
No, it would probably be like a weird conspiracy
funny
theorist who helps him.
Right. Who would be like saying stuff about like JFK and aliens, you know?
Yeah, but instead it's just some guy who's just blows himself up for no reason.
Which I thought for a second, I thought he was. I thought, like, did I miss this character from the first two games? Was he a wacky character that the Hauser brothers took over and, like, made it gross and cynical? I'm like, nope, they just stuck this guy in here. So, to just cap it all up, I mean, assuming there's nothing else you want to talk more about the plot.
No, I think I've talked about everything.
Oh, did you know that the guy that he walks up to at the end of the game, he gives this monologue. I didn't realize that it was a choice to shoot or not shoot that guy.
Oh, it is? I didn't realize that either.
Yeah, it is. And apparently most players shoot him according to Steam achievements.
I shot him.
Oh, you shot him?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I didn't realize it was a choice in the other way.
Really?
Yeah, because I was just watching the cutscene, so...
Oh, there's a reticle that pops up when you're pointing the gun at him.
Okay, you know what? Quick aside. We talk about ludonarrative dissonance. I was experiencing real-life dissonance because when I was playing that final level, I was drunk. Which was
so you missed the fact that a reticle appears on his head?
Yes, and I've said this before, where you see these pathetic posts where people are like, gaming's not fun anymore, I have all these games I never feel like playing because, life gets me down and stuff. Well, you're not drinking. Drinking makes video games more fun. But I suppose the more thematically appropriate thing to do would have been to drink in the earlier parts of the game. So, yes, I missed that bit, but also, it doesn't fucking matter. Again, another thing where...
Right, does he live if you don't shoot him?
It doesn't matter in an emotional sense.
Right, because, I saw that, and I thought maybe this is a choice, but then my thought was, I just blew his arm off.
Yeah, he's fucking dead.
Die.
I mean, you could justify it either way. It's like, well, I should shoot him so he's
right. You could argue it's
misery.
because in Spec Ops: The Line, there's the scene with the
CIA with
guy
Riggs,
where not shooting him is the evil option because he's going to burn to death.
Yeah,
right?
and it's
that's what I thought that was the same thing where it's like, if I don't shoot him, his entire arm is off. He's going to bleed to death. There is no one unless we put him in an ambulance right now, he's going to die.
Yeah, and they do... Well, there's two other times where the game does that, where you can wait, where you let guys pass that you're, hiding from, or you can shoot them.
Right. There is a moment that I did notice in the police station.
Yeah?
Where there's one scene, one room, where if you kill everyone else, the last guy will surrender.
I didn't even notice that.
He puts his gun down, he puts his hand up, and you could just walk past him and not kill him. But it's only if you kill everyone and there's one guy left. So if you kill them all really quickly, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and it's not I'm not asking for, God forbid, some sort of moral point system or something.
Yeah.
It's weird that it's there, but also it's kind of meaningless. It doesn't say anything, or it doesn't make me feel a certain way. It's just it's whatever. The last thing, just to cap it all off, was I, of course, was looking at reviews at the time. And yeah, this game is peak prestige because IGN giving it a 9.0, and a lot of the review was the gameplay is fun but simple, but the game is explicitly praised because of its style and writing. In fact, the IGN reviewer even says it proves that video games can be a writer's medium, which is just like a baffling statement.
I think the first two games prove that more.
Yeah, that's okay. So GameStop too, they say brings a wider range of emotions to a character that previously has been one note. Talking about Max Payne, and it's like
it does the opposite.
And it's like, no, like what the fuck?
It's doing the opposite of that. Like, it's making him more of a one-note grim asshole. He's funny in the first two games.
Yeah, and this is a clear-cut example of, yeah, this is getting praised because it's more cinematic and more like a movie. But unlike, The Last of Us, whatever, where it's a good movie, it's all just presentation and emptiness.
Right.
What did I say? It's like Rockstar can do scenes, but they can't do any sort of structure or coherence or any of that.
If you want to talk like writer's medium it's interesting because they think they're praising the writing when they're praising the directing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because the first two games are a lot more writerly.
And also,
those are much more writers' games, I feel like, than this one.
The first games, as in the first games, like video game, like Zork, where it was all text-based.
I guess those are literally writers' mediums. Because it was just a writer in a super basic program.
Well, my first thought was like thinking back to like 90s like CRPGs, which were like way more dialogue-driven than like later, like the earlier Fallouts have more dialogue than later Fallouts because it's cheap to write things versus
it's
record
all text.
audio.
You're not high. Yeah, you're not high.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, man. I think it's always been kind of a writer's medium.
Well, sure, but you are like those are not representative of everything, though.
Right. But either way, Max Payne 1 and 2.
Okay, I'm gonna say that I think you're kind of wrong about this, and that's because you talk about CRPGs. But what they mean when they're talking about Max Payne 3 is the type of games that sell.
Sure.
Like, CRPGs have always been niche even within gaming.
That's true. But again, you're right. We just go back to Max Payne 1 and it's just an insult to Max Payne 1 and 2.
It's an insult to Max Payne 1 and 2, which have better scripts, or at least better, like, realized writing styles.
Like I said about those games is they're not trying. They're video game stories, and they're more aware of that, and they work more within that framework. And this game it is able to achieve a more film-like quality, but it's all surface level bullshit, and it's way less entertaining. Because Dan Houser sucks as a writer. I swear to God.
I don't have the hatred of Dan Houser you
do. Well. You just got to play more you've got to play Grand Theft Auto 5 because that definitely has probably some of the worst instincts. Or at least it's just, it's the game. So you just get it full force.
Yeah.
But I think that's all we got about Max Payne 3.
Okay. That's all we got.
Any final thoughts?
They should make a new Max game that's good.
They're remaking the first two. God knows how they're going to do that. Yeah.
They're going to get Dan Houser to rewrite them. It's going to be sad.
No.
I'll say one thing. No, I don't have anything to say.
All right, let's call it then. I'm stopping.